Okay, good evening. It's almost 6 p.m, so I'll declare the September Ordinary Council meeting open. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land we meet on, the Nulla Kala Buja and Southwest Bajara people. We acknowledge and respect their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of all communities and cultures and elders past, present and emerging. We have one leave of absence tonight, which is Councillor Andrew. Do we have any previous public questions taken on notice? No. So we'll move to public question time, and the first question is from Bronwyn Mutton.
CEO and President and councillors. My topic is to do with the new bushfire mitigation regulations. So DFES, Department of Fire and Emergency Services in Perth, staff told me that DFES makes recommendations, then they give responsibility to local government authorities to introduce regulations suitable to their local areas. It is very concerning that the Shire of Capel bushfire mitigation notice regulations are very confusing and open to multiple interpretations by different people. Their practical meaning cannot be clearly understood without detailed explanation, education and clarification. This may change depending on individual interpretations. Shire of Capel policies should be written clearly, without ambiguity, for ratepayers and without needing ongoing detailed explanations by staff. Saving local remnant bush and habitat for wildlife such as birds, possums and small endangered mammals should be a priority to preserve the precious remnant unique Capel ecosystems. It is very strange that such new confusing regulations are being introduced with action by ratepayers expected by the 31st of October. It is now late September. These regulations have only recently been posted to ratepayers. So my question to the CEO and Council is will you defer implementation of these regulations until they are rewritten with clear meaning of implications to enable clear understanding by ratepayers? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I must say I tend to agree with your preamble statements, and for that, on behalf of Council, we apologise. And I'll just pass you to the CEO because I think it's probably a bit too late in the day for us to produce a new notice, but you can rest assured, well, I think the Council will do better next time. Just CEO.
Thank you, Shire President, and thank you, Mrs. Mutton, for your question and also for providing it in advance to enable us to prepare a more complete response. You're right, you're correct that DFES has, as the authority for fire under West Plain arrangements, provide advice and recommendations on the standards that should be applied. This information is then used by local governments to guide the requirements under the Bushfires Act that provides the authority for local governments to require property owners to mitigate bushfire risks on their land. The Shire of Capel has based its requirements on the bushfire mitigation notice on material provided by DFES, taking into consideration the local context. In line with the communication strategy, the bushfire notice was included in the rates notice and will be published in the newspaper prior to the compliance period, consistent with the approach used in previous years. In addition, public information sessions form part of the communication strategy, with an information session held on the 8th of September in Jalaura, and another session is planned for Peppermint Grove Beach on the 19th of October 2021. The Shire of Capel also provides information on social media and has scheduled a green waste collection time to allow residents of Boyanup, Capel, Dayup and Peppermint Grove Beach to prepare their property and have green waste removed from the verge. The low fuel zone is only for the immediate 20 metres around the home and does not require the area to be devoid of vegetation or any mass clearing of vegetation to the detriment of local fauna and important ecosystems. It requires the vegetation to be managed by trimming trees, pruning shrubs, cutting grass, and not having trees planted within 2 metres of a building. The bushfire notice, whilst a change from past approach, has been approved by the Bushfire Advisory Committee Council and then has been government gazetted. The Shire continues to be committed to working with landowners and tenants to mitigate the bushfire risk on their land, and we will continue to communicate with landowners about how to best implement the new bushfire mitigation notice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Kathleen Thompson.
Thanks, Mr. President and Council. At an ordinary council meeting held on the 25th of August 2021, Council made a decision to approve an extractive industries licence for a sand pit on lot 230 Elgin Road. Myself and many people have expressed concern that this decision has set a precedent to allow the excavation of sand, ore and gravel down to 1 metre above maximum groundwater level. As this decision was against staff recommendation and a contradiction of the long-standing extractive level limitation of 2 metres above maximum groundwater level, as stated in the WA Government Gazette, Shire of Capel Extractive Industries Local Law 2016 Part 6E, does the Council have any concerns that this will further encourage further extractive industries applications, which may result in the clearing of many low, well-vegetated sand ridges in the Capel Shire, that before the precedent was set at the August Ordinary Council meeting would have been uneconomic to excavate? That's my first question.
Okay, the answer's no. Council carefully considers all these sort of applications on their merits, and we went through a fairly forensic and exhaustive process on this. We gave it due consideration, and that was Council's considered view that it be approved. I'll ask the CEO to provide some more background, but that's where we stand.
Thank you, Shire President. It's probably make more sense if I respond at the end of your other questions. Thanks, Mrs. Thompson.
Okay, thanks. Question 2. Since the August Ordinary Council decision on lot 230 Elgin Road, how many inquiries have been received by the Council to A, reopen previously completed pits, where the final, which were finalised with a floor level of 2 metres above maximum groundwater level, with potentially new applications to now excavate down a further 1 metre above maximum groundwater level. B, on currently licensed pits to now go down to a further 1 metre above maximum groundwater level. And C, to apply for a new excavation licence to excavate down to only 1 metre above maximum groundwater level.
CEO.
Thank you, Shire President. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, for providing your question in advance as well to allow for a more complete answer. The demand for sand and gravel is currently extremely high, and as a result, the Shire has received a much greater number of development applications for extractive industries than in previous years. The nature of the landscape and geology within the Shire means that many sand resources are often located within existing vegetation ridgelines. Approval of extractive industries in many cases do require the clearing of vegetation. approval of further extractive industries with a reduced separation to the maximum groundwater level below 2 metres has the potential to increase clearing of vegetation. Any further applications for new or amended extractive industry licences will be assessed on their individual merits in accordance with applicable planning framework, the Shire's extractive industry local law and the specific circumstances of each site and the surrounding circumstances. Since Council's decision on Lot 230 Elgin Road application, the Shire has not received any requests or application to reopen existing approved extractive industry licences or to revise existing approvals or new applications that seek to excavate to 1 metre above maximum ground level.
Thank you.
Thanks. Glenn Bone.
Thank you, Mr. President. The subject is the rates model review, a bit of a hoary chestnut for the last few years, and with your permission I'd like to read a few paragraphs of background so it will give some meaning to the question which I will later pose. At the 28th of October 2020 Ordinary Council meeting and at minute OC 201/2020, Council sanctioned a rating review brief with the intent that a suitably and experienced consultant would undertake a rating review and complete the process by the 31st of January 2021. A rating model review draft report was prepared by consultant Moore Australia and delivered to the Shire in January 2021. The document is actually dated the 11th of January 2021. The final report also bears the same dates and appears to be unchanged from the draft report. As far as I am aware, Council has not formally considered the report or made any decisions as to what changes it might implement to its rate modelling. It is understood Council did have a workshop discussion several months ago, however formal decisions cannot be made at such forums. It was of course the original intention with the rating model review to be delivered by the 31st of January 2021 that there would be adequate time to implement fundamental reforms to the rating model for 2021-22. Sadly, this has not happened, nor is there anything on the agenda for action at this point of time. I therefore pose the following question. Will Council, without further delay, now establish a process to consider the rating model review?
Mr. Bone, yeah, once again, I do apologise for the delays in that process, but I can assure you that it hasn't been forgotten, that there is still a process underway, and it's unfortunately been a lengthy one, in part due to the fact that we've had a couple of different acting CEOs, and they've been reluctant to sort of take that sort of project on board, if you like. But it is still a live project, and I'll ask the CEO to update you.
Thank you, Shire President, and thank you, Mr. Bone, for providing your question in advance. The Rating Model Review final report, completed by More Australia WA, is an informative tool which will guide Shire officers in future collaborative rate model discussions with councillors. One of the recommendations detailed in the report relates to the preparation and adoption of a ratings policy to guide officers when preparing rate options for consideration by council when implementing rating decisions. Shire officers and council have agreed by having a ratings policy will improve rating outcomes, particularly in aligning the rating structure to the fundamental principles of rating, as well as detailed in the Moore WA report. It is the intention of Shire officers to commence the preparation of a rating policy review with councillors at the start of the new year, with a view to council adopting a rating policy prior to the commencement of the 22-23 rate modelling workshops.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bone. There being no further questions, I don't think, we'll move on to confirmation of minutes. Sure, you may. Can you please state your name and then ask the question?
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. I've got my question here on my phone. My name is Doreen Roney and I reside in Elgin. Councillor Southwell, do you think it is appropriate that you continue as the President of the Capel Shire after further press statements to the South Western Times attributed to you that the Dalliup and Jallurup should be incorporated in the city of Bunbury?
Yes?
That's all I need to know, so it can be on the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no more questions, we'll go to confirmation of minutes. The ordinary council meeting of the 25th of August 2021. I believe there's an amendment to it.
Yeah, thank you, Shire President. Just for councillors, noting when considering the adoption of the minutes that there was a correction which was issued, part of the response to public question time from the August meeting was omitted, which is now included in the corrected minutes that I'm asking you now to consider.
Okay, so Councillor Clues, do you have a question? Oh, you look like you had a question. I think all... Yeah, that's... Oh, I see. I think councillors are all aware of the update to those minutes. All right then, if there's no discussion, it's moved Councillor Clues and seconded Councillor Noonan. Do we have any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I did just want to thank the staff for very quickly fixing that error when it was brought to our attention this morning.
Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's accepted unanimously. We now move to announcements without discussion, and I'll pass you to the CEO who has a couple of announcements.
Thank you, Shire President. Tonight's council meeting, we have 3 serving councillors that are concluding their terms with the Shire of Capel, and I would like to acknowledge them, and I would like to read, I guess, a brief summary of the terms that the councillors have served and some of the key committees and initiatives that they've been involved with during their terms. So the first is Councillor Michael Southwell. Councillor Southwell has completed 1 term with the Shire of Capel. He was elected in the local government elections of 2017. In the 2019 elections, Councillor Southwell was elected by his fellow councillors in the role of Shire President. Overall, through the course of his term, the committees that Councillor Southwell has served on has included the Development Assessment Panel, the Jallurup Community Centre Committee, Trials Working Group, Audit Committee, Local Emergency Management Committee, Bunbury Outer Ring Road Community Liaison Group, Dalliup Multi-Purpose Centre Working Group, Parent Naturalist Partnership, State Administrative Tribunal, and the Walga South West Zone Representative. Councillor Doug Kitchen. Councillor Kitchen has completed 1 term with the Shire of Capel. He was elected in the local government elections of 2017. Over the course of his term, the committees that Councillor Kitchen has served on has included the Audit Committee, the Bushfire Advisory Committee, Climate Change Adaptation and Sustainability Committee, Boynup and District Farmers Markets Committee, Boynup Hall Committee, Boynup Memorial Park and Sports Council, Capel Land Conservation District Committee, Jallurup Community Centre Management Committee, the Boynup Foundation, the Local Emergency Management Committee, and the South West Regional Road Group. Councillor Kitchen is also a bushfire volunteer with the Elgin Bushfire Brigade for the last 9 years. Councillor Kitchen recently completed his Diploma of Local Government Elected Members on a Jackie Dodd Scholarship, which he received recently from the West Australian Local Government Association. Councillor Murray Scott. Councillor Scott was elected to the Shire Council in 1993. He served from 1999 to 2001 as the Deputy Shire President and the Shire President from 2001 to 2019. Councillor Scott has served on a variety of council committees and working groups, including the Advisory Committee, the Bushfire Advisory Committee, Local Area Management Committee, Emergency Recovery Committee, the Walga South West Zone Representative, the Bunbury Outer Ring Road Community Liaison Group, Bunbury Wellington Economic Alliance, Geocatch, Heritage Interpretation Plan Working Group, South West Regional Road Group, Bunbury Wellington Economic Alliance, Buoyant Up Progress Association and the Perry Naturalist Partnership. Councillor Scott was awarded the West Australian Local Government Merit Award in 2013 and the Emeritus Service Award in 2019. Councillor Scott has been part of the Elgin Bushfire Brigade for over 50 years and Deputy Shire Bushfire Control, Deputy Chief Bushfire Control Officer for the past 21 years. The Shire of Capel would like to acknowledge these three councillors concluding their terms and thank them for their service to the council and the Capel community.
Thank you, Maid.
Yeah, I think you have another announcement.
Do we have any representatives here from CREP, the Capel? Did you have anything you wanted to do at this point in time? Yes.
Stand too close. Evening, all President, CEO, councillors. I'm here in my role as the chair of the Capel Regional Equestrian Park Management Committee. And the equestrian park is just a part of the wider equestrian community within the Shire of Capel in the southwest. Equestrian activities within the Shire range from our top-level thoroughbred and harness racing to the competitive sports including eventing, polo cross, camp drafting, dressage and show jumping, as well as pony club and the more socially based adult riding clubs, not forgetting the important services provided by the RDA and horsepower, not to mention the many happy hackers out there doing their own thing. Being involved with horses is a 7 days a week commitment and inevitably requires the expert services and support of vets, farriers, feed and hay suppliers, fencing contractors and so on. And we haven't even started riding yet, and that list is even longer. Needless to say, the horse owners support a great many businesses in the local area. Now, the reason for bringing all of this up is that although not everyone who owns a horse in the Shire or the southwest will come through the gates of the Capel Regional Equestrian Park, the support and sponsorship of the Shire of Capel to these grounds is seen, noted and appreciated by the wider equestrian community. Your support is seen as a recognition and acknowledgement of the value and importance of this vibrant and active part of the Capel and southwest community. So on behalf of the Capel Regional Equestrian Park and its affiliated clubs, I would like to express our appreciation to the President and the CEO and the councillors, and well, really the entire Shire of Capel, appreciation for your ever supportive and hard-working staff with the presentation of the Certificate of Appreciation. We sincerely thank you for your involvement and input into this facility and its clubs.
Thank you very much. We're happy to help. As I think everyone would be aware, the Capel community has been touched this week by tragedy with the unfortunate deaths of Colin Dent and his wife Bernice. Colin was a long-serving member of staff here at the Shire, and so we think it's appropriate that we, as a tribute to Colin and his wife, that we stand for a minute's silence. Oh, sorry. So we'll remain standing, and the CEO is going to read some words first.
We would like to acknowledge a former member of Shire staff, Mr. Colin Dent, and his wife, Bernie. Colin worked at the Shire of Capel for 34 years, between 1984 to 2017. He was a highly respected member of the environmental health field. He was known for his innovation and the manner in which he mentored colleagues in the small health team over the years. Colin's work highlights included the implementation of the 3-bin system, introducing the organics bin to the southwest. Forefront of mosquito management, commencement of aerial treatments and the well-documented pink mosquito study. Long-standing country representative on a number of committees such as the Local Health Analytical and Environmental and Edith Cowan Environmental Health Consultative Committees. He essentially administered everything that didn't fall into other departments, from radioactive contaminated sites to stable fly. We put together a commemorative book when Colin left the Shire of Capel in 2017, and a copy is held in our library archives if people would like to read it. Colin's enthusiasm to his job and willingness to help with any task at hand is something that will not be forgotten.
Okay, thanks everyone. Okay, back to business. We will now move to petitions, or we've had a deputation and a presentation, so we'll move to motions of which previous notice has been given, and we have a motion here from Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move the following motion: that an Economic Development and Grants Evaluation Committee of Council be established to investigate and promote economic development opportunities and potential grant funding opportunities for the Shire of Capel. 2, that the EDGE Committee commence operation following the October 2021 local government elections. 3, the EDGE Committee consists of 5 nominated councillors. 4, the EDGE Committee meet on a bi-monthly or quarterly basis. And 5, that the CEO be requested to develop a draft terms of reference for consideration by Council.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Schiano. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of this committee is fairly clear. It's to look at the opportunities that the Shire might be able to harness in terms of economic development. And that's not only opportunities with private businesses, but also looking at funding opportunities through grants, government grants, federal, state, that we might otherwise be missing out on. This falls in line with our strategic community plan, directions number 3, to foster a dynamic, diverse and strong local economy, and direction 5, to provide and maintain suitable infrastructure and facilities. I think this is a great opportunity for the Shire to be innovative. We're small. That gives us the opportunity to be agile and to seek out and take these opportunities. There are other shires and other regions around the state that have developed similar committees, and that they have been successful in their operations. So I think that this would be a good thing for us to get onto. So I'd commend it to the council.
Councillor Schiano.
Thank you, Mr. President, but I think that Councillor Noonan has summed up the item quite well.
Do we have anyone else wishing to speak for or against the motion? If that's the case, we'll have to put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Carried. Thank you. We have another motion from Councillor Mogg concerning the biodiversity park. Go ahead. Oh, would you like to move it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so it's up on the screen, so you're moving it as read, I take it, and seconded Councillor Clues. Okay,
Yes.
go ahead. Thanks, Councillor Mogg.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very excited to present this motion regarding the Cardigan Biodiversity Park, which is in our Shire of Capel, Iluka own. I'll read the motion. That the Council in principle supports the proposed future Cardigan Biodiversity Park. The Council supports the preparation of a feasibility study on the proposed future Cardigan Biodiversity Park, including the consideration of all future management options that may include, but not limited to, the Shire of Capel. And 3, the Council endorses the Chief Executive Officer to write to Iluka Resources and the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions, DBCA, reflecting such in principle support. 4, that the Chief Executive Officer write to relevant stakeholders reflecting this in principle support, subject to endorsement of the Council, and ask the Council support. Thank you.
So, Councillor Mogg, as we have a seconder, you may speak to the motion if you like. Or
Thank you. Reasons and authority. The proposed site is currently under active mining lease held by Iluka Resources, and that any access to and use of the site in long term following cessation of mining activities needs to be agreed by the state government under processes managed by the Department of Mines, Industry, Regulation and Safety, DMIRS. The current mine closure plan requires the site to be rehabilitated with native vegetation, communities, and for any contamination to be appropriately remediated. The Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions is an advisor to this process and is aware of fauna's interest in the site. Operations for long-term use of the site post-mining could include a lease under the Conservation and Land Management Act 1984, the CALM Act. If the land remains in state forest or potentially an excision from state forest into a Crown Reserve vested in an agreed management agency or freehold land. The Shire does not have a formal position on the potential option of being involved in the management of the site. Any potential future role for the Shire should be included in a comprehensive feasibility study, business planning and consideration of all potential future management options. Discussions on potential future Cardigan Biodiversity Park are occurring in the near future between Iluka Resources and DBCA, making it an ideal time for the Shire to express in principle support for the project and openness to be considered as a potential management option, subject to appropriate feasibility and business plan. Thank you.
Councillor Clues, do you wish to add anything? No. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? We can put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? So those in favour again? Can I see who's in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Are there any questions of which previous notice has been given? We'll move to the Chief Executive Officer reports, and the first is the temporary employment or appointment of a CEO policy. Do I have a mover? Councillor Sciano. Seconder, Councillor Noonan. Councillor Sciano. Oh, sorry, I must intervene. Sorry, I just overlooked something.
Yep.
if you're going to move it, could you please move just item 1 first, and
Yes.
then we'll do item 2 because they require different voting categories.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So I will move item 1, which is the annual leave CEO policy be revoked. I think pretty self-explanatory for why that item is on the table. With the substantial item afterwards, the temporary employment of or appointment of CEO policy.
Okay, so do we have a seconder? Councillor Noonan, that's right. You're okay? Yep. So we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Councillor Sciano, would you like to move the second item? Councillor Noonan seconding? Right.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So now I move the temporary employment or appointment of CEO policy. I don't think I need to add too much to this, but obviously gives direction and the ability for the CEO to manage short and long-term periods of leave if required. Obviously, our hope is that there are not many situations where these is needed to be done, but it allows the CEO to obviously appoint an acting CEO or other officers in that position when necessary. So much similar to the policy that we had, but obviously up for review. Thank you.
Councillor Noonan? No. Anyone else? We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. We move to 13.2, the policy on the review of related party disclosures policy. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kitchen, seconded. Councillor Noonan. Councillor Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. President. No, I think this one as well is just straightforward, just improves clarity of the recommendation.
No one else wishing to intervene? All right, we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Okay, so we move to 13.3, the Darblone Vista Basketball Court proposed solution. Would someone, Councillor Clues and Councillor Noonan. Councillor Clues, would you like to move it?
Yes, please, as read. Yep.
As read? Okay. Well, off you go.
Thank you. I think this is a pretty good solution. We're not losing a facility here, we're just shifting it so that there will no longer be any problems. I recognise this was something that was actually suggested several months ago, but I think it was voted down, and the reasoning, if I remember correctly at the time, was that the cost of building a new court was going to be quite high. I think this new quote is quite acceptable, but just to reassure anyone at home or in Dalyellup, I have been assured that the new facility will be put in. At least the slab will be down before the pole is removed from the existing facility. So the plan is to move the pole directly from the existing facility to its new home. So there won't be any time, hopefully, without any basketball facilities.
Thanks, Councillor Clues, for that outline. Now, just before we move to that, I'm reliably informed that we have a deferred motion from a previous council meeting that we have to deal with first. And so we will deal with that one before we can deal with this new recommendation. So the existing one that was still on the table that needs to be dealt with was that in light of the noise report relating to the noise of basketball being played at Darblone Vista, the basketball ring, pole and backboard installed would be removed, and that a council workshop or workshops be held to discuss replacement facilities. So that's still on the table. Yep. So we need to actually vote on that one. If the mover and the second are happy to be the mover and second, that can be voted on. Yep. Yeah. So for ease of operation, we'll assume that Councillor Clues will move it and Councillor Noonan will second it. Councillor Noonan, are you happy with that? Yes, moved Councillor Noonan, seconded Councillor Mogg. so that that is alive again as for the purposes of this meeting. So we'll now vote on that one. Right? Are you all conversant with what's happening? Yeah. Yeah, and it's foreshadowed that if this motion is lost, we will revert to the one that Councillor Clues recently moved. Are you with us, Councillor Clues? Thank you. Those in favour of the one in front of us? Those against? Okay, so that one's lost. We now revert to the foreshadowed and moved and seconded motion, which Councillor Clues has spoken to. Do you wish to add anything? No. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to say that it is unfortunate that it's taken as long as it has for this situation to get to this point. I'd urge councillors to support the recommendation. I think it's a very, very good one. It solves a liability for the council. It continues to provide a sporting facility for Dalyellop, which is good. And certainly it removes a problem for the local residents who have been very patient in their forbearance as this process has been underway. I'd like to thank the Shire staff for their diligence and the research that they have put into different options and to come up with this good solution. So I'd urge councillors to support this recommendation.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Councillor
Yeah, I can't
Scott?
support it. I can't support it with spending $18,350 when the simplest thing would be is to pull a pole out, leave the pad there for car parking, and save us nearly 20 grand. So I won't be supporting the recommendation.
Yeah, I also would speak against the motion. I disagree that it's a very good solution. I think it's a very poor outcome after a long process we've gone through. The thing that disappoints me the most is that Councillor Noonan himself helped with finding a solution in terms of a new material for the backboard, which is a noise deadening material, which we've tried and which did reduce the noise. And ultimately, if council decides to pull that facility down, that community facility down, which is enjoyed, we know, by a lot of people on a regular basis, and move it, I think that, as I agree with Councillor Scott, that it's a needless spend of money. Sorry, Councillor Sciano? Oh, someone did. Anyway. So I think it's a shame that that this has come to this has been put before us, because we should be, and we've become known as a council that believes in community consultation and listens to the community, listens to community feedback, and in this case, the Shire in August and September did consultation with the community, and we sent a survey to 32 surrounding residents of the existing facility, and we asked them, have you noticed a reduction in noise from the basketball court since the installation of the new backboard? Have you noticed any antisocial behaviour at the court recently? If yes, provide details, and should the basketball stay? 16 of those contacted responded, and the results were overwhelmingly in favour of retaining the facility. 13 of the 16 indicated they hadn't noticed any antisocial behaviour. So we had an overwhelming response from the community that they didn't want the basketball court moved, that there was no antisocial behaviour, which was the original complaint, and they thought, 16 out of 18 thought that it should stay. 12 respondents indicated the basketball should stay. The 3 respondents, one from 1 Agra Way, who was the original complainant, I understand, and 59 and 51 Hutt Drive indicated the court should go, and one was unsure. A resident from 36 Antelope Turn commented, if people are complaining about great places for kids to play, then they have I won't repeat the rest because it's derogatory. It says, thanks for installing the new backboard and maintaining our parks. Another nearby resident stated, we feel it is really important to provide recreational facilities for young people. We actually enjoy the sound of sporting activities being played. Another local resident said, it is so good to see children and their parents and teenagers enjoy this basketball court and the playground and see the joy on their faces, as we do quite often at various times of the day. We are home about 80% of the time and never hear loud noises from the basketball court at night, with our bedroom being at the front of the home, only about 2 houses away from the park. Removing the basketball court will not stop anti-social behaviour. Now, I agree with those respondents, and we wish to side with the majority who took the time to give us the feedback. And I'll be very disappointed if this happens, because I believe that there's a principle here in that in our parks and reserves we should be able to provide facilities for people to go and enjoy themselves, to recreate, and they should not be demolished simply because someone thinks the noise is too much. We took heed when we were told there was a noise problem, and we reduced the noise. That's as far as it should go. We shouldn't be spending money which is could be spent better and better things elsewhere, providing services, etc., on reconstructing something that's already been constructed. That's my view. Councillor Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Look, I'll be speaking in favour of the officer's recommendation. The issue has become not so much one about complaint about antisocial behaviour near a person's residence. It's actually an issue of compliance. The noise generated from the basketball court is non-compliant to some households. We're not talking about taking away a facility, we're just shifting it about 170 metres from its currently location, so it's not really a loss to the area, but it's making it compliant. And there would be some of those respondents who, fortunately for them, don't have a non-compliant issue affecting them, but unfortunately there are some residents that it is. And so this is about keeping a facility still in the area for all the locals to use, but fixing that issue of non-compliance to some particular landholders in the area. Thank you.
Sorry, this is a bit unusual. I'm not sure whether this is appropriate, but would you be prepared, there's a question to you, would you be prepared to outline the non-compliance that you spoke about? Can you specify?
Thank you, Mr. President. There was a report provided to Council through the subsequent agenda items where it was identified that the noise levels exceeded what was required under the, I can't remember the exact act, but it was Environmental Protection Agency or something. And so, yeah, it exceeded those levels, and it's non-compliance for a few particular households, or one in particular.
Was that before us we replaced the backboard?
I believe it was before, was it? Oh, both. But
Sorry, if I could perhaps clarify that for you, Councillor Southwell. It's not only the impact of the sound of the basketball on the backboard, but it's every bounce on the concrete floor, on the surface, every single bounce exceeds the allowable noise level for a neighbouring residence. And as we are responsible for the park, we fall into the same category as a neighbour, according to the Environmental Protection noise regulations. So we are the neighbour who is causing this detriment to a neighbour, and so we do have a statutory obligation, as Councillor Kitchener quite rightly points out. We have a statutory obligation to deal with that matter and to resolve that problem. We're not allowed to continue to create this problem. So we're not. And the good thing about the recommendation that the council, that the Shire officers have put together is that
Councillor
they're
Noonan,
moving it. They're not. Yep.
You'll probably get a chance to speak to the motion.
Yes.
So you've answered the question. Thank you very much. Councillor Sciano.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have to admit, early in the stage of this discussion, I shared a very similar view to the councillor on my left and the councillor on my right. I do not like when the antisocial behaviour stuff is flung around, and I don't believe that the Shire had much in its power to be able to mitigate that. It's a police issue. What really was a turning point for me in the way that this issue has developed and grown, and it has, it's changed over time what the issue is. I think the turning point for me was that independent acoustic report, and the other councillors have just touched on it anyway, and sort of beat me to that line. But I think that we have, to some regard, have a statutory right to remediate the issue. There's a risk of non-compliance there. I think that we've done a great job at trying to identify some alternative ground sources, bases, stuff like that. We've all had some great ideas and workshops about that. I keep throwing around what they do at the caravan parks. It seems to work to some degree, but I definitely don't think many caravanners like the basketballs out at 8 p.m. at night. But and to come back to the survey and to specifically talk about, should the basketball court stay, right? I know only 2 people said no, it shouldn't stay. But in my view, it is staying. It's moving 100 metres to the west to a more suitable location. And the basketball court will stay. It still will service the people that it was there to service in the first place. And so quite frankly, I think that though, yes, $18,500 is not ideal, and it's not a position or money that we probably would have wanted to spend if we didn't have to, but I think that we, in a way, we have a requirement to remediate the issue of compliance. And I think over the way that this issue has progressed and the journey that it's been on, I definitely have come from one side of the argument to the other. And so I'm very happy to see that we do have a remedy on the table tonight, and I'm very supportive of that as well. So obviously urge other councillors to support it as well.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Noonan, I cut you off? Did you want to continue your remarks?
No, thanks.
Councillor, I'm sorry, Councillor Clues, are you ready to go? Are you? You're looking like you're champing at the bit there. Okay, let's hear it.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now feel a little silly for having moved this one, but I've had a bit of a change of heart, to be honest. I think it's occurred to me that the acoustic report, and as it's mentioned in the staff's recce, was actually only expressing that the noise was above limits in basically nighttime hours and outside of the hours where use should even be available. So we've got a couple of problems, and it's a bit, I think.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Councillor Noonan, which of the standing orders are you referring to?
The need to correct my peer.
That's not a standing. That's not a standing order.
Because
Councillor Noonan, I'm sorry, that's not a standing order. So I'm not allowing the point of order, put it that way. Carry on, Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's at the bottom of page 35 in the officer's report, and I believe elsewhere in the same report. Where was I? So now the issue being a noise one, the noise isn't the only issue. In fact, for anyone to play basketball at that time of night, they're having to park their cars on the grass, also obviously illegally. So there seems to be not only antisocial behaviour, but clearly some traffic laws and parking laws being violated as well. But worse than that, and this is what's made me now change my mind about this issue and to agree with Councillors Scott and President Southwell. Where we, with this report, intend to move the court to will actually be closer to a neighbouring house. I believe it's, well, it won't be any further anyway. It must be very close, but I'm not sure. We haven't heard from, we haven't seen what any kind of noise effect from that location is going to have. So without that, I think it'd be a bit troubling that we end up in the same position we are now, receiving complaints about where we move the thing to, which as much as I just wanted this to be done so that it was done, the potential to be revisiting this after we've placed a new one, it's enough to drive a man to drink thinking about it. So I don't want that. So I'll be voting against the motion.
Okay, well, let's put it to the vote. Those in favour of the officer recommendation? And those against? So that's carried 4-3. The 13.4, the proposed licence for an offshore wind farm feasibility Preston Beach to Mile Up. Do I have someone wishing to move that one? Councillor Mogg, seconded Councillor Kitchen. Councillor Mogg, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll read the motion as read and nothing to add. Thank you.
Councillor Kitchen?
Thank you, Mr. President. I suppose I'll just make a few comments that just heard a few things getting around the public saying why we're considering this because it's not even in our local government. But I suppose I'll just say it is a regional project and it will have some effect on us, particularly power supply in our patch. But there's sort of these sorts of initiatives because of that regional reach. They want to find out what everyone thinks, and just looking at our strategic community plan, it hits a number of directions in there. It also sits in line with our recent climate change declaration. So, as a regional project and as part of the regional community that we are, I think it's very important that we get behind and support this initiative.
Thank you. I think we can put that one to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. 14.1, ancillary accommodation at Lot 22, Lilydale Road, North Boyanup. Do I have a mover? No? All right. Councillor Clues, seconded. Councillor Kitchen. Councillor Clues, anything? No. Councillor Kitchen? No. We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? We'll do that again. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 4-3. We'll move on. Oops. Extractive Industry Licence 14.2, Lot 102, Goodwood Road, Capel. Anyone wishing to move that motion, officer recommendation? Oh, Councillor Sciano, seconded. Councillor Kitchen. Councillor Sciano, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. President. No, look, I think in light of the item that came before Council last month, I think I don't see any major issues in here. There were some comments regarding the proximity, obviously, to the river through there. I think they were addressed quite well in the officer's report, but I guess it's good to see that we won't be going near the 2 metre separation. So endorse the officer's recommendation.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just concur with the comments of Councillor Sciano there. Very happy with the conditions and the recommendation that's put forward for this extractive industry. Obviously, it's a resource that is very much in need in the southwest at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. I'd just like to move an amendment, if I can possibly get a seconder. And the amendment is that at point 1V, point 1V says at the moment a 50 metre separation distance to Ironstone Gully must be maintained. I would like to amend that so that it says now a 100 metre separation distance to Ironstone Gully must be maintained. Councillor Clues, I think you're seconding. My reasons for this is that, as we all know, Ironstone Gully is one of the it's an iconic destination and attraction in our shire, and it's a popular place for people to go and recreate and visit and have picnics, etc. And I just think, it'd be under the sort of precautionary principle, it'd be wise to have at least 100 metre separation from quarrying or mining from that facility. Councillor Clues?
Thank you, Mr. President. A question, if I may. Just wondering if perhaps through you someone may define where the boundary then of Ironstone Gully is. Is it the fence to fence? Is it the rock formation itself? What are we talking about?
Acting Director of Infrastructure Planning.
Thank you for the question. It's the boundary of the gully itself that we're talking about here, not the falls or any of that kind of stuff. It's the watercourse. Yeah, so it's separation from the watercourse.
Is that satisfactory, Councillor Clues?
I wonder, sorry, if I may.
Supplementary question?
If I may, thank you. Just it's from the banks of the watercourse, or are we talking to the fence line? I know the other side of the river, there's a fence line there.
My understanding, it's from the centre line of where the gully, where the watercourse is.
Okay with that?
Thank you. Very good.
Councillor Clues, do you wish to speak? No. Councillor Sciano.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I think if, for Councillor's reference, in the attached items, and unfortunately it doesn't have a page number, but for attached items 14.2, there is an aerial map which shows lot 102 sort of in the centre, and you'll notice a blue squiggly line which runs through it. So that is Ironstone Gully. The actual location of Ironstone Gully Falls, which obviously is the destination, is quite a few hundred metres back towards the road. There's actually some separation, quite a bit of native vegetation separation between lot 102 and Ironstone Gully Falls. But I completely agree with the sentiment of the President's motion. I guess my question is, and when we look at that diagram, there's an orange area which is the stage 5 proposal, with stage 4 is actually quite close to, which is actually, so stage 5 is actually separated from the gully by stage 4, basically. So ultimately, this stage shouldn't impact the gully and won't be in any proximity to the actual falls location itself. It wouldn't be visible because of the hundreds of metres of vegetation between the road and that lot. I do have a question though, Mr. President. It would be nice just to clarify, if the staff do have the information, what the distance is between the proposed extraction area and the gully, if it's known.
Acting Director? Not Acting Director, Director, Infrastructure and Planning.
Thank you for the question. I can take that on notice, but I don't have it in front of me.
So I've just found, because it's about the same colour as the rest of the map, there is a small legend here, and I think it is about 150 odd metres away from the gully. My question then, a second question, if we are to amend that to 100 metres in this recommendation, is it fair to say that it won't affect the approval for the current extractive stage 4?
Director of Infrastructure and Planning.
Yeah, given that the other stages between the gully and this, it will have no material impact on the extractive industry.
Okay, no, that clarifies. As I said, I understand the sentiment and I respect that, and I also agree with it as well. I guess ultimately, at the end of the day, it won't impact the actual stage 5, the proposed extractive area, and it obviously won't impact Ironstone Gully Falls in any way. And obviously now knowing that won't impact the current extraction that's going on in stage 4. It's kind of one, you support it, you don't support it, but I think the outcome is ultimately the same.
Okay, do we have anyone else? So as the mover of the amendment, I'd just like to sum up from what I've heard. that notwithstanding that it is not a separation distance to Ironstone Gully Falls, I still think that the precaution of leaving a 100 metre separation to the gully itself is still worthwhile and a sensible idea. So I commend the amendment to you, and we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? It's carried 4-3, so that becomes the substantive motion. I think we can just move to this vote on substantive motion. Those in favour? Oh, the original mover of the motion was Councillor Sciano. Would you like to sum up?
I have no additional comments to add.
So we can put it to the vote again. Sorry. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 5-2, unless I'm very much mistaken. Yeah, I think 5-2 is correct. I stand to be corrected. Okay, so we can move on to 14.3, the renaming of Maid Marion Street. Do I have a mover? Councillor Noonan, seconded. Councillor Clues. Councillor Noonan, would you like to move it as read, or and speak to it, or
I'll read the motion.
Okay.
And speak to it if I could. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that no further steps towards renaming Maid Marion Street are taken. And number 2, that the Shire write to the initial applicant that requested the renaming of Maid Marion Street, advising them of the council decision. In the report that the officers have prepared for council, they have provided information about the questionnaire that was sent to residents in Maid Marion Street, requesting their feedback. There were 13 individual responses, as well as a letter which was signed by 26 residents of Maid Marion Street. They made it very clear, all of those responses made it very clear that they liked their street name, that they wanted to retain their street name. None of them indicated agreement with the initial complainant's concern. They pointed out the expense and the difficulty of changing everything from titles on title deeds to changing details with banks, with telecoms, with water, gas, electricity, every other government department, as well as the expense that any change would incur to the Shire in renaming, repositioning street signs and that sort of thing. So, given the very clear responses from over half of the residents in Maid Marion Street indicating that they believe there's no requirement to rename the road, it's recommended, I support that recommendation from the officers that that we accept this motion.
Councillor Clues, anything to add? No. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? I need to just note that Councillor Mogg declared a impartiality interest in this item, which means that she can remain in the room and vote if she would like. So we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 15, Community and Corporate Reports, 15.1. Is there someone who'd like to move that one? Councillor Sciano, seconded Councillor Kitchen. Councillor Sciano.
Nothing to comment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councillor Kitchen? No. Okay, let's put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 15.2, the Boy and Up Bowling Club Sports Lighting Upgrade. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kitchen is the mover. Councillor Sciano the seconder. Councillor Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's a very worthwhile project to get behind. Probably one of our most active clubs in the district. I know there's been some concern about light pollution coming from the project, but in the attached report we've seen that there was a lighting engineering report done to keep that to the minimum, and the light selected also keep that to a minimum as well. So very happy to see this one go through, hopefully.
Okay, anybody else? No? We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 15.3 is the Minor Community Grant Scheme applications, and the recommendation is that we approve funding of $19,827 and a second round be held for the remaining funds of $8,303 to be promoted in January. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Noonan. Seconded, Councillor Clues. Councillor Noonan, anything?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sciano, Councillor Clues. Okay, those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. The amounts are there. We want to move now to 15.4, which is accounts paid during the month of August 2021. Councillor Mogg, seconded. Councillor Kitchen. Pretty self-explanatory. Nothing to add. Okay, a vote, please. Carried. Unanimous. 15.5, the financial statements for 31st of July 2021, as printed in the agenda. Councillor Kitchen, seconded Councillor Sciano. Those in favour? That's carried unanimous. We're rolling on now. 15.6. Do I have a mover for the CREP redevelopment? Councillor Clues, seconded Councillor Mogg. Councillor Clues. Councillor Mogg? No. It's all there. Forward planning. Anyone wishing to speak for or against? If not, we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Do we have any new business of an urgent nature? No. Are there any further public questions? All right. Oh, yes. State your name and your question, please.
Mike Norton, Chairman of the VAS Zone of WA Farmers. And WA Farmers of last week have reasserted their policy in relation to buoying up sale yards, which we'll no doubt be giving you in writing in the very near future. But the question is in relation to the accounts. Scrolling through your accounts on Sunday night, there's an account there for just under $3,500 for a legal opinion in relation to buoying up sale yards. Is there any chance of outlining what that was for?
CEO? No? Or one of the directors across that? No? We might have to take that question on notice.
Yes, yeah, I prefer to take that question on notice, just so I can do some background work as to what the actual transaction relates to. Thank you.
So what we'll do, Mr. Norton, with your indulgence, is that we will note the question. We will provide you an answer in writing, but we'll also read that one out at the next council meeting. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, very much appreciated. It's an issue that we're intensely interested in.
Yeah, thank you. No motions without notice. Notice of motion for consideration at the next ordinary meeting of council. There are none. Items for consideration behind closed doors. I'm not aware of any. So with that, at 7:14 p.m, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you and good night.